Recording. And we are live. Welcome to episode 47 of the RINO Podcast. Happy Sunday, everybody. Good morning. Caitlin looking stylish in her 90s blazer. Do those have shoulder pads?
They have the built-in kind.
Is this what's coming back?
Yes, it is. I think it's been back for like 2 years now, but I found this blazer on Etsy. It was new with tags. Someone bought it and never wore it. So yeah, vintage. Well, not really vintage. I don't consider the last 30 years to be vintage, but
okay. Yeah. I'm going to say not a fan of the shoulder pad look of the late 80s and 90s, early 90s. I'm going on the record as that.
I like it. I like the shoulder pad look.
The best fashion
I don't like rounded shoulders. I like structured.
What do you think about the trend of the past 5-ish years of the waist high mom jeans, even on younger women? Because
I don't mind that. It depends on the wash of the jean, though. Okay, like if it is like acid wash and like with like a paper bag waist or like one of those like stretch waists, I think it needs to be like a structured jean. I think Frame, the jean company Frame makes a good one, but yeah, I think they're okay. It depends on if they're structured jeans.
No, I'm not. The high watermark of jeans was the Britney Spears early 2000s lowriders. Those are great. Phenomenal.
No, not cute. Ladies listening to this podcast, please do not wear low-rise jeans ever again.
I hope
if it's 4 to 5 inches underneath your navel, it is not attractive, especially if you're not in shape.
I'm just maybe that, but that's a caveat. But it's definitely a great look. The Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, early 2000s,
oh my God,
100%.
That's when you peaked, wasn't it, Geoff? I mean,
yeah, but yeah.
No, what the trend that I hate now with clothes is the midriff stuff. I hate seeing people's belly buttons. Like, I do not like seeing the midriff at all.
Depends on the belly button.
Oh my God, you're such a dude.
Yeah,
dudes rock, right?
Yep, absolutely. We'll get into a dude thing. Actually, a white Peloton, white wine sipping liberal, their hero, who will allude. Well, I'll just get into it. I'll skip what I did. I don't have it on the tweet. Do you know who Bianca De La Garza is?
No, but is she one of those people?
Well, she was the hero to those people, right? So Bianca De La Garza a few years ago was a local newscaster, and she's real good looking. I guess was part of the top newscast back in the 6 o'clock news type newscast. And something happened where she stopped. She went off to do like more entertainment reporting and maybe hit LA or Miami. I don't know which. So kind of dropped off the local radar and was doing some, I guess, stuff that was not necessarily successful for entertainment reporting. She wound up getting into a little bit of heat because she wound up I don't know, bilking or defrauding some millionaire. And I don't know what it was about, or allegedly, because I don't know if it went through the courts. And she kind of dropped off the radar for a little bit. Well, now she's back and she's doing a show, I want to say on Newsmax, and it was all over the local papers because she is like the hero to the stereotypical brain dead, suburban mom who doesn't pay attention to news and politics and just likes fashion and Bianca De La Garza. And it's fascinating to see just the heel turn in the media. We're like, oh my God, she went to Newsmax, and the articles that came out because of it. Totally just turning on her how dare she go to Newsmax. Well, good for her. Good for Bianca De La Garza. I don't watch Newsmax, but I would absolutely tune into her program. She's just to see what she has to say for a few episodes.
I assume that I rarely watch. I do have to admit, guys, I've said this on Twitter. I rarely watch cable news and I don't watch Newsmax. If I do watch cable news, it is Fox News when I'm on the treadmill at 5 o'clock. So I'm watching the 5 on Fox, which is like kind of an opinion show where they just talk about the general news. And so like I am so out of it on like a lot of drama unless I see it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Which was funny because of all this CNN drama this week.
Yeah, Twitter is my news source, but Fox News is, you know, right now you're a lib if you watch Fox News, apparently, to some idiots out there. Anyway,
which
so
I think is funny because like Brett Baer is like solid. I think he's one of the.
He is. It's a good 6 o'clock is a good newscast.
Out there.
But anyway, that I did want to mention that on this episode, probably not in that order. But we've got a lot to talk about today and a lot to cover. And some of what we have to cover is has to deal with Massachusetts Republican Party, the MassGOP, Geoff Diehl running for governor. And I'm going to tell you a little story. There was an event 4 years ago now, Caitlin, where Rob Long of National Review and of Ricochet podcasts, former writer of Cheers, very smart guy, funny guy, did a little event with one of his podcast hosts, Mike Stopa, over in Burlington, town next to me. So I was like, oh, this will be fun. It was just like at a bar, you know, kind of a, you know, just a little live event. And lo and behold, the 2018 candidate for Senate shows up, and that's Geoff Diehl. And I got to talking to Geoff Diehl, and I said to Geoff Diehl, Geoff, look, you're a nice guy, but you need to fire, and you need to hire Corey Lewindowski. Now,
you said that to him?
Yeah, 4 years ago. I did, because he did. Yeah. And it would have been a good idea if he did, because I think he would have done a lot better against Elizabeth Warren than losing by 30. Now, maybe he would have lost by 15, but still.
And I voted for Geoff then.
I voted for Geoff in 2018. Absolutely.
I voted for Geoff in 2018. I mean, Liz Warren's like,
yeah, of course,
crazy.
Of course, it's a no-brainer.
I don't, and I think she's smart but nuts. Like that's the thing.
Smart, stupid. I saw that on Twitter. Smart, stupid. There's another smart, stupid person that I have tagged in the episode.
But keep going with your story.
But anyway, so he's like, I was like, fire you know who, and hire Corey Lewindowski, and he's like, I can't, and I'm like, well, why? I'm like, why haven't you? He's like, I can't find anybody else. So I say, hire Corey Lewindowski. He's like, yeah. He's like, I don't know if he'll be available. I'm like, doesn't matter. So he must have tried and not been able to do what he needed to do because nobody was fired and maybe Lewindowski was busy. But now he's been hired as a senior advisor to Geoff. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're just paying him to like be, maybe give him advice or get on the phone. But the guy does know how to, he does know how to like win, I guess, primaries or get ahead in the primaries. But I don't even know if it's going to be a competitive primary if Chris Doty doesn't get 15% at convention, right? And how how that happens. But also, he's not going to be the campaign manager. He's going to be senior advisor. But I thought it was interesting because at least it got good headlines. But it's like he's going full. But Corey Lewindowski is associated with Trump. I don't know what that does to help your gubernatorial chances in Massachusetts, where it is upside down to an astonishing degree of the popularity of Trump. So suspect from that but I don't know what that gains him. I mean, Lewindowski, he's got a bad reputation from what happened out in North Dakota with Kristi Noem's people.
He just has kind of that marker of Trump on him right now. I think he had some like personal issues earlier on in the Trump admin. Not a guy that I would hire in order to win Massachusetts in any state race.
Maybe Ohio, it's a more populous area. Yeah, more Rust Belt area, he'd be a good pick.
Yeah.
I don't know what that does for you in Massachusetts.
Pennsylvania,
yeah.
Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. I don't know in Massachusetts if that's a good hire.
Especially not as a campaign or as an advisor, not a campaign manager,
Right.
which would be different on the ground. I mean, he is a New Hampshire guy, right? So,
Yeah.
so maybe there's something there. There's local ties, but I mean, interesting pick, but interesting. I don't know what the fruit of that tree bears.
Right.
Anyway, but now to the fun stuff. MassGOP's broke. Caitlin, I'll just defer to you. Go, you kick us off with this one.
I mean, okay, so we talked about this last week during the state committee meeting. Essentially, it got to the point where, I mean, Jim is not going to be able to write checks. The treasurer is not going to break bylaws in order to write checks. We, Geoff, you and I, two registered Republicans, have no idea what's going on with that and how that's been resolved in the last week. I know that half of the state committee, because he was yelling at them during the meeting, just got up and walked out.
Right. Well, what was going on was they were trying to seat Nikayla, right? That's how you say her name?
I think so.
With an N, who was was clarified, went to court. They said, yeah, Nikayla is the state committee woman for this district.
And okay,
definitively.
And we have to, like, she had to go to court for a state committee seat. That is ridiculous, guys. She had to spend money in order to go to court to get this finalized. That's insane to me.
Well, because Jim wouldn't recognize the election.
Right. So she had to spend, like, that's, again, the lengths that people are having to go in order to get this, like, approved and qualified are insane because of what he's doing.
And it's, I mean, I don't want to say illegal, but it's clearly against the rules. She's duly elected, and she needs to be seated on the committee.
It's extremely bad faith. Like, it's extremely bad faith. Like, I don't know how, like, someone can look at, like, the state party and see our chair right now and be like, yeah, it's healthy.
So that's what happened in the committee room, because they wouldn't seat Nikayla. Jim wouldn't seat Nikayla, which is weird that, like, she should just be on the committee. It shouldn't require him to, like, do any kind of little gavel tapping to make her be on the committee. And she is, and her vote counts. And the shenanigans that he's done to keep people who are against him off the committee and at bay is absurd and awful. Well, regardless, everybody who's normal with a brain walked out of the committee meeting because he was pulling this shit, and they denied them quorum, and then he couldn't pass a budget, and then apparently from, let's see here, let me share the screen, and let's do Frank Phillips. I have up on the screen.
Yeah. I love how on the down low Frank is on Twitter. His, like,
right. So I'll just read it. MassGOP in a fiscal shutdown. Its treasurer freezes bank account after chaotic /walkout at state committee meeting last week. In email, Pat Crowley tells members, I can no longer authorize any payments. GOP Chair Jim Lyons lost control of meeting last week. No budget passed. Now, if you're watching this and your immediate response is, no, they actually passed the budget, oh boy, are you missing the point. If the bank accounts are frozen, it's game over. I mean that in the literal sense. Because there's nothing that can happen. You can't make deposits for convention. You can't collect money. And to unfreeze a bank account, especially a political organization's bank account, the bank is going to be super duper cautious before they even think about reopening that stuff, and has to be by the book. So let me word of advice to the folks on the committee. If you're the assistant treasurer, if you're somebody else, do not sign those checks. Do not sign those checks if Jim tells you to sign those checks, and it's fine. Jim wouldn't sign those.
I'm going to be very serious actually about this. Do not sign checks if you are not allowed to. Do not put yourself in a position where you could be legally liable for what's going on right now. And so you don't want to have to hire a lawyer in order to do this job. So just don't do anything that breaks the bylaws, guys. Like that's corruption. Okay. So like, that's an actual serious legal issue. And so here's Geoff and I telling you right now, don't do it. Don't do it. And don't mess with that.
100%. And don't, and by the way, if you're Jim and you're telling somebody to do that, I'm reasonably sure that's a crime, right? If you're if you're the head of an organization and you're telling somebody in your organization to break the law, that somebody's not authorized to sign checks, I mean, you know, that could constitute fraud, wire fraud, like that. Don't do that.
Aren't they already looking into what's going on with like the campaign donations? Like
well, that's an interesting thing, right? Yeah. So
like, I say, like, bringing that up, like, aren't they already being investigated for campaign finance violations? So that's a thing. Like, do not get involved in that, guys. Don't write that check. I'm sorry. Like, you don't want to be a part of that. And that could be hooked in. I mean, if they think it.
Just to recap the audience, in case you didn't know, there's been an investigation for possible under indictment. You know, the indictment hasn't come down yet because Jim accepted money from a state senator and dispersed it immediately to the state senator's wife's campaign. And you got to be a little bit smarter about it if you're going to do that type of thing, and a little bit more by the book. And he apparently wasn't by the book. So he's under investigation for that. Now, the person that would execute that investigation is probably Attorney General Maura Healey. Now, this is an interesting conundrum, right?
It's very interesting.
If you're Healey, what do you do? Let me ask you a question. What do you think Healey does in this predicament with?
I think she treads lightly and gives them a lot of options.
Yeah, I think
a lot of pathways. I think that she doesn't want this to be a huge political scandal because she's going to be running for governor, so it doesn't want to seem like on her political side she's going after the MassGOP as her political rival.
It would give him right. Here's the thing: she's probably, give your enemy enough rope to hang themselves.
I think that they're at that point, right? Like, yeah. I mean, but at the same time, she's got to uphold her end of her role. And so I think that if I were to give Maura Healey any advice in this situation, give them lots of options.
Right. If she goes through with an indictment and pushes for one, it looks political. It actually gives Jim a way out to just claim this is political persecution, which it would which he does on the routine every single week for something. So and it would the national media would eventually pick up on it, and the problem you have is that if you don't scratch at the surface too much in this, and you just look at it at face value, that the Democratic candidate for governor, who is the attorney general, is going after the Republican Party in Massachusetts. If you just have that's your headline, it's not a good headline. It looks corrupt and wrong, and could actually hurt her and help Jim. So I don't think she's going to move forward with the prosecution because it'll bail him out. Literally, imagine this, Caitlin. We're in the weirdest world possible where indicting him would bail him out politically, and maybe and literally. Whereas if she doesn't do anything, what's that?
I mean, but if he gets indicted and goes to jail, is he going to be the chair of the MassGOP sitting on a jail seat? Like,
because
we don't know, and there's so many possibilities that could happen here. I don't think that a lot of people understand how bad this is. So we're like talking about the political fallout of an indictment. And on top of that, right now, he can't write checks for MassGOP because of
you can't pay the rent, can't pay the employees,
can't pay the rent,
can't take care of convention. which you need to.
I assume the employees are on some type of direct deposit from, like, they have that HR set up. I would hope to God.
But you have to fund that. Those are, I mean, maybe a few weeks worth of money in the payroll account, but you have to fund the payroll account. You have to authorize the transfers periodically to get from one account to the other.
You're going to accept back pay? Like, I think that's a lot of questions you're asking your boss right now.
I think there's only 2 employees at this point, maybe 1.
There's 2. There's 2, I think. From that last I heard, there were 2, and this was like December. But yeah.
I don't think Healy will pursue an indictment, because what would happen is like it would increase the chances that it would make her look bad. It would give Jim a way out. It would also, if he is somehow removed his chair, you'd get somebody, there's the potential to have somebody competent in the position that could then raise lots of money and then make the organization stronger. And
yeah, see, the Dems want Jim in place. Like, I think that should be very honest and like open with people. Like, we need to be clear about that. They want the dysfunction. They laugh at the dysfunction.
Yeah,
like we laugh at the dysfunction.
But
like, it affects us because our values are not, they're not winning in Massachusetts, but they want that dysfunction.
It's the only thing they have to cling to in 2022.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to look forward to for them. They're going to get wiped out nationally. Biden is in the toilet with his poll numbers.
Yeah.
His administration is actively failing. The COVID restrictions, even the liberals with a brain and progressives with a brain are ready to bail on a lot of these COVID restrictions, and those in power, like Michelle Wu, who we'll get to in a little bit, won't ease up on it. Won't lift mask mandates. They're too beholden to teachers' unions. They, the force of the showing of the papers, show your papers to get into a restaurant to eat.
And they're losing now. Like, I think that as we go into spring, we're going to see all of these things go away because people are asking more questions. I mean, Geoff, like right now, the Canadians are protesting. What gets to the point where the Canadians decide to protest in 0-degree weather and actually put a flag on their back? Like, I mean, this is like the most
it's everybody it's so what's the saddest part about all this is the Canadians are leading the charge against mandates.
Ottawa.
God bless them. But it should be all over the country. And then there's that high school kid. Do you see that video of the high school kid talking to his classmates about like a walkout they were going to do?
He's like, don't be rude to administrators. Don't be rude to teachers. Don't put the mask on. If someone tells you to put one on, you're going to say no. And then if it gets to a point, you politely walk out. Don't be antagonistic. Make your point proven. Like that. I was impressed with that kid's leadership, honestly. Like
where is that kid's in high school? Where is that on a college campus? Where is that on a college campus? Where is that in anywhere of your supposed activist and who's so concerned about democracy? I mean, this is why the left is
after you've taken one college gen ed class, you're probably bought into the woke ideology at that point. Hey, good for that kid.
Good.
I mean, honestly,
that kid's fantastic.
That kid said something a lot braver than most adults would do.
Yep. And if you're an adult and you go to work and you cow to your bosses and you for whatever reason, and you privately are in favor of removing the mask or something like that. Look, if you believe the little talisman on your face is keeping you safe, okay. You're wrong. You probably know you're wrong, but you do it anyway because it makes you feel good. Look
at what happened in Virginia with Glenn Youngkin. He walks into a supermarket, some lady yells at him. I mean, she sounded psychotic, Geoff. Like when I watched the video, I was like, why is this news?
Yeah, because they are psychotic.
And
they are. Look, think about what kind of psycho would do that.
Liberals kept it in the news for 3 days. Yeah. 3 days.
Yeah. They love their mask. They love to control you and tell you what to do and make
It's
sure
just
you
weird.
obey. Yeah.
It's so strange.
To bring it back to our topics, this is what pisses me off. We would be in such a great position to the entire congressional delegation of Massachusetts, all Democrats, all progressives, all love the big heavy hand of the state, Michelle Wu, all of it, all of the Democratic candidates for governor, lock, stock, and with maybe the exception of that Danielle Allen professor, who I'd love to talk to a couple of these candidates anyway. Maybe I'll work on that, see if they'll come on the pod to discuss their campaign.
I think high progressive Bernie type people can start seeing through some of the old libertarian left.
Yeah,
they see through some of the mask stuff, and we don't agree on a lot of things, but like we can agree that this is theater now, and so it is theater.
It is.
But like Michelle Wu is like authoritarian left, and so that's concerning.
Yeah. And it was interesting. So this week I put out a clip of her on the Horse Race podcast, and where she said, oh boy, let me pull it up. Sorry. You know what? I can play it. Look at that. With technology today, Caitlin, I can play the clip that I had. All right, so let's do media. Let's do this. Okay. So let me see here. Sorry, folks. You're on a live podcast. We're doing it like that. Let me play the audio. Okay. And
surge environment in a pandemic, it's just irresponsible to be putting other people, to be making the argument that your individual freedoms or liberties allow for putting everyone else at risk. That is not what this country has ever been founded on, and that is certainly not what the city of Boston will be making our policies based on.
Caitlin,
the city. Oh my God!
I have a question for you, Mike. Wait. My question for you is, what does unalienable mean?
What does inalienable mean? It means that you are. It comes from within, like that. It's something that nobody can really take away from you.
Correct.
Inalienable,
it's something that
right.
it does not change. If your freedoms are inalienable, meaning putting other people at risk, supposedly, allegedly, in Michelle's Wu point of view, no, your freedoms don't stop because it might.
I think it's very concerning that a mayor of a major city said something like this, that your rights and your inalienable rights are not worthy and not something that this country is founded on. That is concerning. People have died for our rights, to protect them, to even have them. I mean, I think that statements like that sound great to very populist people in Boston, very progressive people in Boston who don't believe in, freedom of speech anymore, don't believe in, I don't even know, like the first few amendments. I don't understand how people can look at the 15th Amendment and say that, and just be okay with what she just said, because the right to vote based on, race, gender, previous servitude, she just negated that. And that's what those kind of statements, that's what they are. And so people need to start looking at when progressive people say that, and really pushing back on it.
The mindset she possesses is one that the collective is more important than the individual. Your individual rights do not supersede the safety or common good of the collective as they see it. And no, Michelle Wu, the founders did not think that your freedoms are now limited because there might be a risk to the collective.
Well, literally the Bill of Rights was put into the Constitution because of what she just said. Like, what she said was factually wrong. And so what responsible politicians do at that point when they make statements like that is they say that they were wrong. She's only proving to me that she's not a responsible politician. She's proving this either that or she's naive. I tend to go with a little bit of the latter because I'm not really impressed with Michelle Wu. that much.
She's clearly over her head. She's clearly over her head.
I find her kind of clownish, to be quite honest, and so and a little bit naive.
Yep.
And so when you make statements like that and you're wrong, the responsible adult position is to state that you were wrong and you move forward with what your policy is. You don't make statements like that saying that inalienable rights and individual rights don't matter in the United States, especially in Boston. Like in Boston, the place where the American Revolution began. Are you serious? Based on taxation? Like, do we really need to go into how she's factually wrong historically? Like literally a tax revolt where the legal argument is, I'm going into it, Geoff, I'm doing this.
Go for it. I'll do my impression after.
Like literally a tax revolt based on the fact that the colonies didn't receive representation in Parliament over in the UK. And so that's your argument, that there's been no point in American history where individual rights, like our country wasn't founded on them. What are you talking about? Yes, they were. Even in the Articles of Confederation, they allowed for states to have these individual rights, and then they enshrined them in our Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I mean, why would you say something so almost insidious, but you're too naive, so it's just incompetent? Like you're a clown. They
say it because they believe it. They believe the inverse to reality. They believe
but it's
their own
naive.
gaslighting.
Like she was fed this, and it's naive and clownish. When you make statements like that, you're saying that like individual rights don't matter. Does habeas corpus not matter? That's essentially what you're saying.
To them, it does not. No, to them, it does not.
Does the right to a lawyer, like right to a trial by jury, not matter? Does the right to not have, I'll go into some of the more insane, quartering of soldiers not matter? Like, does your individual property not matter? Like, apparently to you, it doesn't matter. But I don't think that she really.
The answer to all your questions is yes. The answer to every single one of those questions, it's like yes.
I don't think it's an individual thought. She doesn't come off like it's like a deep personal MO. I think she's been taught that it's naive more than it is her.
No, this is what
coming up with this political.
There's a confidence in way in which she speaks, and there's a tone to which I picked up on in this interview, which I'll try to impersonate in a second. But this is what a Harvard education will get you. Like there's a confidence.
She went to Harvard.
Didn't she? I'm pretty sure she did. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But
if she went to Harvard, I think if she went to Harvard and did Harvard history, I mean,
it explains a lot.
Had one Harvard history class, I think that's okay. Yeah. I mean, like that makes actually sense because I don't think highly of a lot of Harvard grads, so that makes sense.
But there's a tone in her voice that you hear from like Jen Psaki. There's a lot of progressives speak this way. There's a condescending way in which they talk, where they end all their sentences up with inflection, and she extends the last syllable of every sentence she says that comes out of her mouth when she speaks.
Like she's got to teach you a lesson.
She's got to. Everything she says when in the course of an interview is extended. Every syllable.
This is the reason why I think she's clownish.
It's an immature
this is
pattern.
Also the reason why I think Jen Psaki is clownish. I think Kamala Harris is clownish. I actually don't think Simone Sanders is clownish. I think she's authentic. I disagree with her, but I think she's authentic.
No, she can tell she probably doesn't put up with bullshit. Like she just knows smells what the bullshit is, even if she feeds it.
Yeah. And so I find Michelle Wu to be clownish.
But they all went to the same school. They all came out of the same factory, where they speak in this condescending bullshit tone, where they don't really know what they're saying. Like the reporters on the Horse Race podcast, and I encourage you to go listen to it. Actually, go listen to that episode. The woman, I think her name's Jen Smith, was asking Michelle Wu the questions. Asked her three times. What's the metric for lifting restrictions on vaccine mandates? Right. What's the metric? How do you know? What can you tell? Now, two previous administrations, both Walsh and Kim Janey, were at least like, all right, 5% infection rate. Once it drops below that, done.
If she cannot supply the numbers, she can't supply the numbers, and there's no reason to have a vaccine mandate anymore because you cannot you cannot reasonably enforce this mandate.
Right. She would not say, all right, when we hit 88% vaccination rate, it's gone. She wouldn't, or 90 or whatever. She wouldn't put a number on it. She wouldn't say what infection rates. She just kept dodging, and they lightly pressured her, probably because they didn't want to push. They can't push a Democrat too far if you're in the media. But all she would have had to say at the end of her questioning, because she went back to it 3 times. The reporter did 3 times, and
3 times is a lot.
Is a lot. So she asked it nicely in a different way, and Michelle Wu just kept dodging, kept deflecting. And at the end of that, if you were Bill O'Reilly, for all of his faults, you would have said, okay, so you're not going to answer the question. You're not going to give a clear, definitive answer. You would have ended this.
Like he did with Jen Rubin?
Yes, like at an adversarial.
Yes, what you're talking about.
The press needs to be adversarial. Now, granted, they were very adversarial with Trump to a degree beyond reasonableness. And the inverse with Biden, and inverse with which all Democrats. And they need to stop, because nobody's taking you seriously. So I can't take them seriously. If I was in that interview with Wu, I'd be like, all right, so you're not going to answer the question. You're going to avoid it. And that's any interview where they dodge, they give the political answer. You have to sit down and you have to say, well, am I going to clown myself and just, okay, well, I guess it's just all these platitudes that progressives dodge every real issue with. And it's astonishing to me that they still are able to, I don't know, make money or have their company be profitable. I mean, I guess it's nice to be, if you're the Boston Globe or you work for public media, or you get your funding from other source where you actually have to generate revenue. It's got to be a nice life, because you become complacent and lazy, and you don't have to actually produce results. Which brings to the next. I mean, the next topic that's related to the earlier two has been WGBH has been on a tear with some quality clickbait. Adam Riley wrote a piece on Geoff Diehl. Is everybody underestimating Geoff Diehl? The answer is no.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece.
No.
I think okay. I'm gonna put this out right now. I think the Dems are underestimating Geoff Diehl and what the current political atmosphere is, because Geoff, I'm seeing "Let's Go Brandon" like car stickers in like the North Shore. Like I'm seeing like hardcore anti-Biden stuff where I didn't really see that with Obama. And I think that they're underestimating the current political atmosphere, and people are fed up. Like inflation is real and it's not transitory. Like we're feeling the effects of it right now. We feel the effects of like oil prices going up and how that affects like natural gas prices. Like we're seeing those effects. And so people are fed up. I do think they're underestimating the political atmosphere. Yeah. Geoff Diehl as a person? No.
No. Look, if there were some populist upstart with a groundswell of support behind him, who had maybe never run for office or was at some lower level office, and suddenly they were gaining steam, man, woman, just catching fire, riding a wave coming up, I would say, yeah, you might have something to worry about. But
right.
You're dealing with somebody who blew a state Senate special election, lost by 30 in his Senate election 4 years ago, and has just taken another bite at the apple to run for governor. Now, like I said, if it were some different candidate, yeah, I'd say that. But there's no money coming into his campaign. The state party literally now can't help anybody. It can't help any campaign. This die was cast a long time ago. And I am.
And I think a lot of Massachusetts Republicans need to start seeing that. Yeah. Like this was lost a long time ago. And so And it is lost because we don't have a political apparatus around the state party that we can utilize to go forward. And that really does hurt us politically. I don't think people really realize that. And what we need is a lot of Massachusetts Republicans. If you're registered as a Republican, you need to start showing up to your RTC meetings and you need to voice your concerns. And so, and when you voice your concerns, those people who are in the RTC will talk to their state committee people and they'll start, you know, I mean, they already are on the state committee, but we really need Mass Republicans to really start voicing that concern because this is serious. Like this is going forward. It's the long game. We're not talking about the short game is already settled. The long game is what we're concerned with right now.
Yeah. 2022 is basically done. So, you know, nobody's underestimating Geoff Diehl. It's not going to happen. He's not going to raise money. He's not a particularly good speaker. You know, Adam Riley points in the piece that, he has a good idea to or he's really good at reading the room and telling people what they want to hear. Well, yeah, but any politician could do that. I mean, it's just he doesn't.
They go into these things knowing what to say. I mean, doesn't mean anything. No, I think they're underestimating the political atmosphere. We don't really get really good polling in the state of Massachusetts on a lot of issues. I don't think so. Sometimes we do, but at the same time, I think a lot of Massachusetts Democrats are underestimating the political atmosphere. They're probably going to see a slight shift to Republicans because they're Republicans and that's what they stand for. But it's not going to be enough to win.
What you could see is some dark horse races. Like Dean Tran, who's a good state senator, is running for Congress in the 3rd, I want to say. Like, you never know. Like, that could actually happen.
He's running against Lori, right?
Trahan, is that the 3rd? There's the 6th. No, that's the 3rd. Or Jesse Brown running on the Cape. Great, good guy, good candidate. Could totally just, ride a red wave into office. Like it's that type of year. It could happen. But the governor's race, I mean, look, Geoff
and those are course races that people could win based on the atmosphere alone. Yeah. We need to be honest about that. There's no state apparatus that's going to help them. They're going to have to build this infrastructure on their own. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it. They're working really hard. Yep. We know the people behind Jesse Brown's race. And so we know who they are and they're working in good faith and they're doing a great job. But yeah, I mean, the state race, the governor's race, we have no campaign apparatus right now. And we don't even have the money to fund a lot of things. So, and we don't even have a state chair who can write checks. So.
Disaster all around. Look, you know what? He could resign next week. He won't. Here's the bitter part about this. He's not gonna go anywhere, and I kind of
go quietly either.
I kind of am okay with that. There's 30 people on that state committee who will need to eventually be replaced at some point, but there's 30 people that I mean, he could have, he could literally shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and they're still going to vote to keep him as chair because they're not normal people. They're not normal people. But you need 2/3, right? You need 2/3 to remove the chair, right? So it's not a simple majority of an election. So he's going to hang on to the bitter end, and I kind of want that to happen because I wanted him to lose. I want there to be a race where he loses. But if he were to quit tomorrow or quit this week, it'd be much better for the party. We could probably scrape together some semblance of an organization. I mean,
we could rebuild.
We could rebuild. It would take
a while, but you have to start slowly. Have to get good people in. You have to start doing really good PR.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so constrained right now, and again, he can't even write checks. I don't even know how people who can support him try to defend that position.
Yeah. One quick thing I wanted to mention on WGBH's Clickbait. Dan Kennedy, who's a professor at Northeastern, who was on my old podcast, and I actually did a guest lecture at his in his class a few years ago. It came out with an article about Joe Rogan, and Rogan's caught a lot of heat because there was an video that came about from Don Winslow, some writer, fiction writer, and of him saying the N-word, right, over and over again. But they removed all context of it because he was actually talking about the word in those conversations, but he used the word and said the word. I should say he said the word, he didn't use the word. And he's caught a lot of heat from that recently, Joe Rogan, and Spotify has pulled some episodes apparently. And Dan Kennedy wrote a piece basically saying both philosophically, technologically, and literally he was inaccurate in the piece. Joe Rogan is not a broadcaster, Dan. It is a difference between a podcast and a broadcast is a broadcast goes out over airwaves to everybody. A podcast, you actively have to go choose to select and listen to it. You have to, the human being who wants to consume it has to go out and get it. Okay, so in Dan Kennedy's piece, he says Joe Rogan's a broadcaster. And he says this because then he can be...
Broadcasters are on TV. Podcasters are on like a podcast platform.
And then they're subject to regulation, right? If they're a broadcaster. This is an important point why he did that. But more to the point is Dan Kennedy has been so in favor of censorship and the lack...
It's so weird being journalists in favor of censorship.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand this point of view. You all used to be like the paragon of like free speech. You wanted to be, go up and question the man. Like, I mean, we're seeing like the boomers go off on Joe Rogan all the time. Like, what were you all doing during the 60s? Are you now the higher people in power? And so you're trying to push down on the little guy? Like, that's what you're doing. You're the new church moms of the 90s who can't handle criticism. What it is criticism, and you not having complete power over the information that is given to everybody else. And we need to be all honest about that. That's what's happening right now. And it's happening culturally. So we don't have this liberal aspect of free speech anymore that people had. You all rightfully went after their Christian right for being super censorious in the 90s. And now you're the censors.
It's shameful. Every Boston media member who is against free speech and is for censorship ought to be ashamed of yourself. There's no I'm for free speech, but no, there's no but. There's no but. But not misinformation. No, you're not smart enough to know what misinformation is or what a conversation is opposed to propaganda. You are an arm of the Democratic Party, and you should be ashamed of yourself if you're in the media and you're pushing this narrative in favor of censorship.
I have a real meta opinion on this, Geoff. So I'm Catholic, right? You're Catholic too. You're not really Protestant Puritan at all or anything like that. And so like we don't believe in witch hunts. And I think that old Yankee like Puritanism comes back in this sort of censorious way. And so I see a lot of people in Boston who are progressive because the Puritans were relatively progressive during their time period. And they keep with that because they just adopt whatever the progressive view is at the time. They're really trying hard to keep their power through promoting censorship. And that's a problem. Like, that's not freedom at all. That's just you throwing a hissy fit at not being the powerful group.
Yes.
Sorry, that's my meta position on it.
No, good position. And with that, you fascist monsters of the media, absolute authoritarian nightmares. We're gonna keep hammering you. Hammering you is so much fun. I enjoy this. I enjoy going after you and calling out your hypocrisy and your lack of intelligence and your total ineptitude. I have such a good time doing it. I don't think I'm ever going to stop. And if we're repetitive, it's only because you keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So with that,
I mean, it's like a weekly thing of us talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so classically liberal on this, and they just don't stand for the same values, which is ironic because we're in Boston where the American Revolution began.
Patreon.com/RINOPod, Patreon.com/RINOPod, only $1 a month. Join us for some extra bonus content. We have gone exceedingly long for this open episode, so reward yourself and get some bonus content by Patreon.com/RINOPod. God bless the Canadian truckers. God bless that kid out in the West Coast.
I think he was was he in Oregon or was he in Wisconsin?
I think it was Oregon.
Okay. Yeah.
But that kid in the video who led the protest, there were three people today, Caitlin, at church who did not wear a mask.
I refuse to walk into Starbucks with it.
It's
I refuse to walk into Starbucks with it, and they never say anything. In Salem, they don't say a word. Well, I'm also a regular, so they're not going to say a word.
Do not obey. Stop obeying. Don't show your papers. Politely say, no, I'm not going to.
Beverly doesn't have a mask mandate anymore.
Yeah,
I have a funny story that I'll tell you about that later. I'm not going to say it on the podcast, though.
Okay. All right. With that, everybody, we will leave you. Have a great Sunday. Freedom is alive, but you got to fight for it. Stop the authoritarian nightmares, the progressives. That's all they want to do. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, crap. Time out.
Okay.
There's a new show called Talkin' Politics on WGBH. Back to WGBH. I like them. They give me video content. Where my old friend,
either of us on, we would love to come on.
Oh, they'll never have me on again. They'll never. I've torn them up way too much. They might have you on. They will not have me on. I
would love to come on. The thing is like I'm so disarming that people think I'm so aggressive. In real life, Geoff, you've met me in real life. I'm so laid back.
Yeah, but you need to bring the fire if you go on that show.
But the thing is like I bring fire, but I'm completely reasonable. I just, But
the other thing is they have to, for the contributors that we know that have been on there that we're friendly with, you need to get paid. If they're paying they're paying the libs on that show. If they're not paying you, they don't respect you. They don't care. They need just even if it's $100.
I would love to come on if they would like a reasonable conservative to come on.
Yeah, they want somebody who's not going to push back very hard. Sorry.
Or they want like a crazy person.
Yeah. Or a Trumper that they can, hold up as a model to what they want. But Mara Dolan, who when I was doing TV 10 years ago, Caitlin, so 10 years ago when I started doing TV and doing political spots, she was my first, sparring partner, right? That we would go head to head and talk about what was going back in the 2012 race. She had an interesting statement on Talkin' Politics on Friday nights on public TV, where she is a dyed-in-the-wool progressive, like lefty. More government, more government, the better. And she's starting to move away from the term progressive.
Oh.
This happened 100 years ago. This happened 100 years ago with the progressive movement before World War II, where I guess it was around World War I, where they saw the nightmare of all the horrible ideas that Woodrow Wilson was pushing forward and just the awfulness that was coming out of the progressive era, where they ditched progressive and then started calling it liberal. It's coming around again. They're already moving and changing their terminology from progressive to I don't know what it'll be. But this Mara Dolan is a hardcore lefty, and now suddenly pulling back and like, no, we just need to all be called Democrats. We just need to be called Democrats. Let's not call ourselves progressive. She was like a fire-breathing progressive for the past 10 years on media. Go check it out for yourself.
Geoff, I actually agree sometimes with old school progressives, the ones that like come out of like the old school, like maybe the 60s and 70s that still hold like truly liberal point of views on like speech and leaving people alone generally.
Well, because they were right.
But these new progressives, they just don't.
No.
So
it's not the same.
And some of them still do. I do have to say, some of the old progressive love them, get along with them, great. We disagree, and we're still amicable. Like, that's one of the things like that people don't really realize. Like, I don't like the hardcore progressivism of like Ayanna Pressley or like AOC, where they don't believe in these liberal principles. They're progressive in the sense of Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah.
They're not progressive in the sense of Bernie Sanders in the 70s. Not Bernie Sanders now. Bernie Sanders of the 70s.
Who honeymooned in the Soviet Union.
Well, we can overlook that. Believes in free speech a little bit.
They did at least the bare minimum line. The bare minimum line was they upheld free speech. Was free speech. Yeah. That was
at least he was honeymooning when it was collapsing. Okay.
All right, we'll let you go, everybody. Sorry for the little sidetrack. Patreon.com/RINOPod, only $1 a month, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.